It was Friday, March the 3rd, 1961, and the scene was a popular curiosity shop in Cecil Court. 72-year-old Louis Meyer and Marie Gray were proprietors of Louis Meyer's Curio Shop. It was just a stone's throw away from Leicester Square, and in the very heart of London's West End. Unlike the surrounding busy roads, Cecil Court was regarded as very quiet, clean and posh, and is well known as Booksellers' Row. It was here that Elsie May Batten, 59 years old, worked as an assistant. Little did she know that this would be her last day of employment. In fact, it would be her last day of living. The previous day, Edwin Bush, aged 21, went into the same curiosity shop and told the antique dealer, Louis Meyer, that he was looking for a present for his girlfriend. He took an interest in a curved dress sword costing £15 and several daggers. In the words of Mr. Meyer, who told me that his father was an Indian and that it was a common thing to carry a dagger in India. Bush returned to the shop shortly afterwards and spoke to Elsie May Batten, who was working while Mr. Meyer was out sourcing stock. Elsie, born in Leicestershire, came from a well-to-do family and worked in the family business before marrying the man of her dreams, Mark, who was a sculptor. They later moved to Castletown Road in West Kensington. Mark had made a name for himself in the art world and was often away in the East Sussex countryside working on his projects. Elsie didn't mind this. She knew it was his passion, and eventually it had paid off financially. When their daughter moved out, Elsie decided to get a part-time job. A vacancy came up at a curiosity shop. She applied for it, even though she certainly didn't need the money. She loved antiques, and what better way to get to meet people? The young man who had inquired at the shop about the swords was Edwin Bush. He had come from a troubled family. In 1953, the National Society for Prevention of Cruelty to Children had looked into the family's living conditions, finding 2 adults and 6 children living in 3 rooms. Edwin had first been sent to a home for boys, and then in 1955 was sent to a training farm near Uckfield in Sussex. He then had spells in Borstal, following a string of breaking and entering cases, including petty theft offences. By the age of 20, Bush was living with his mother in the bombed slums of Honor Oak in southeast London. He was uneducated, unskilled, recently engaged, and broke. He lived from day to day, and a rage was slowly building within him. On the Friday morning, Elsie opened up the shop as usual and started to arrange the displays outside, as she did every time upon arriving. Later that morning, 15-year-old apprentice signwriter Peter Albert King left his place of work to call on a firm in St. Martin's Lane. At about 11:30 a.m, he stopped at the curiosity shop, intending to buy a billiard cue he had spotted in the window previously. Upon entering the shop, he saw the rear curtain, which separated the kitchen and toilet from the shop itself, partly open. Through the gap he spotted what appeared to be a mannequin lying on the floor. Moving closer, he saw it was a woman. Thinking she had fainted, King left the shop and failed to inform the police. When Louis Meyer arrived at the shop almost an hour later, he discovered Elsie's body and called the police. The pathologist Dr. Keith Simpson attended the scene. He found that the victim had 3 major stab wounds, one in the back, one in the neck, and another in the chest. The wounds were very deep, with the dagger blade almost completely buried to the hilt into her neck, about 9 inches deep. An ivory-handled dagger remained in the chest wound with its blade buried to a depth of 8 inches. At 8:35 p.m. that day, Mark Batten, the president of the Royal Society of British Sculptors, identified the body as his wife Elsie. Wearing a brown cardigan and a grey skirt, Elsie was sprawled on her side, the upper part of her body covered with blood. Her eyes stared sightlessly, and her contorted face emphasized the agony of her death. She had been stabbed with a total of 3 daggers, part of a collection of 5 mounted on a counter just a few feet away. The crime made no sense. Elsie had been attacked with a shocking level of anger, yet she had no known enemies or debts. She hadn't been sexually assaulted or robbed either. The only thing that had been taken from the shop was an ornamental dress sword. The first major step forward in the case took place on the 4th of March 1961. Detective Sergeant Raymond Frederick Dagg, attached to the Bow Street station, interviewed the antique dealer Mr. Meyer. From his recollections of the suspect Meyer had spoken to in his shop on the 2nd of March, DS Dagg was able to compile a facial likeness of the suspect using the new technology Identikit. Dagg also interviewed a Mr. Paul Roberts, the son of a gun dealer in St. Martin's Lane. The Indian-looking youth and his blonde girlfriend had tried to sell a sword at this shop that very same day. The sword was wrapped in brown paper, which was later found to have Bush's palm print and fingerprints on it. Police decided the similarity of the recollections of both witnesses was so remarkable that the images were photographed side by side and were circulated internally to all police departments, and also released to the press in the hope that the youth could be identified. The community newspapers printed the images, asking locals if they'd seen a man resembling the identikit and a blonde girl accompanying him. Janet Wheeler, the 17-year-old blonde girlfriend of Bush, saw the identikit and joked to him about how they fitted the description, unaware of the vicious murder her boyfriend had committed. On March the 8th, Bush and Janet were out shopping for engagement rings in central London, having recently sold the stolen ornamental dress sword for £15, which is about £240 today. PC Arthur John Hilton Cole, attached to the West End Central Police Station, was on duty in Old Compton Street when he saw a young man answering the description of the suspect, wanted in connection with the murder of Elsie Batten. PC Cole detained the man and his female companion. The man was identified as Edwin Bush. At 7:40 p.m. on the 8th of March 1961, Divisional Detective Superintendent Pollard and Detective Inspector Howlett interviewed Bush. He initially denied any involvement in the murder, claiming he was at home with his mother as an alibi. Bush's mother was later interviewed, and she stated that on the morning of the murder, she thought Edwin had left for work at 7:30 a.m., as he wasn't at home when she got up in the morning. The statement his mother had given contradicted the statement given by her son. At 10:15 p.m., Inspector John Child arranged an identification parade at Bow Street Police Station, with Bush in the lineup. Lewis Meyer was brought in, but he could not make a positive identification. Paul Roberts was then shown the lineup and immediately identified Edwin Bush. Bush was interviewed by police that evening and continued to protest his innocence, but his palm print was found on the dagger and his fingerprints on the dress sword. Bush was interrogated further by Detective Inspector Howlett. Faced with overwhelming evidence, he finally wrote a full statement admitting the murder and insisting his girlfriend had nothing to do with it. He said in his statement, "I am sorry, I done it, I don't know what came over me. Speaking personally, the world is better off without me." Divisional Superintendent Pollard then charged Edwin Bush with the murder. Bush was officially charged with murder in the course or furtherance of theft. Under the Homicide Act 1957, this type of murder carried the death sentence. At his trial, Bush claimed that Mrs. Batten had said, "You blacks are all the same. You come in and never buy anything." He went on to say, "I went to the back of the shop and started looking through the daggers, telling her that I might want to buy one, but I picked one up and hit her in the back." He then testified that he hit her with his fist. She fell down and started screaming. "I then lost my nerve and picked up a stone vase and hit her with it." I grabbed a knife and hit her once in the stomach and once in the neck. The allegation of racial insults was entered as mitigating circumstances. Whether his statement was true or not, the jury did not believe this should have resulted in such a brutal attack. The case was tried in front of Judge Stevenson and was concluded on the 12th of May, 1961. The jury ignored Bush's defense of racial slurs and pointed to the fact that immediately after killing Mrs. Batten, Bush took a sword and went to a gunsmith where he hoped to sell it. Whatever its significance, on an earlier visit to the antique shop, he had placed 3 sharp daggers to one side, on top of a pile of knives. It appeared to the court that Bush was obsessed with the idea that he must have the sword, and he went to the extreme length of killing to get it. The trial judge's summing up was fair, and there was ample evidence to support the verdict. A verdict of guilty was delivered, and Bush was sentenced to death. 21-year-old Edwin Albert Arthur Bush became the last man to hang at Pentonville Prison at 9 a.m. on the 6th of July, 1961. He was executed by Harry Allen, assisted by John Underhill. His body was buried within the prison grounds.
Quotidianum dat nobis vale, et dignite nobis debita.
Cornish dairy ice cream, made with egg and fresh butter. Strawberry Cornish dairy ice cream. Fresh strawberries, crushed and taken to the heart of Lion's Made Cornish Sundae. On sale now.
My dear friends, after that quick and beautiful old intermission, we have time for a short bonus crime case. As this is the only evidence available, it is rather short, but nevertheless quite interesting. It's called Waitress Axed by Jealous Lover. Edith Longshaw, a 38-year-old waitress, was a lodger at a house in Star Street, Paddington. Early in 1934, she introduced her landlady to a man wanting to rent a room in that area. His name was Harry Tuffney, aged 36. The landlady happened to have a room vacant, and he was ready to move in at short notice. It wasn't long before Edith and he began courting, and all seemed well between them, until Tuffney began to become moody in June. Harry Tuffney had visions of a perfect wedding, a family, and living happily ever after. Edith, however, was having none of it. She wanted to enjoy herself, and liked to date other men, and generally have fun without answering to anyone. Harry slowly cooked at the thought of her in other men's arms. The final straw was the discovery of a letter to another man written by Edith, suggesting she may leave Harry in the near future. During the late evening and early morning of the 29th and 30th of June, Harry sat in the communal lounge room, drowning his sorrows in the bottom of a whiskey bottle. Edith had retired to bed early. Harry decided if he could not have Edith, then no other man would. He picked up an axe and killed her with a single blow, embedding the hatchet deep in her head. The next morning he went to the police station, confessed everything to the desk sergeant, and was arrested. He had tried to gas himself afterwards, he said, and the sergeant could still smell the fumes from his clothing. Edith's body was found on her bed, where she was believed to have still been sleeping when she was murdered. The only chance to save Tufney from execution would be a defence of insanity. At his trial at the Old Bailey, there was no suggestion of provocation leading to sudden violence. The crime was evidently premeditated, and the only question to be settled was whether there were grounds for a verdict of not guilty by reason of insanity. His defence team relied heavily on his medical history during his military career, informing the court that he had received shrapnel injuries to his head during direct action, and another traumatic incident in which he had killed 3 Egyptians during an uprising. There were conflicting medical reports. There was a history of insanity in Tufney's family, and the circumstances of the crime suggested a neuropathic or psychopathic condition. A Harley Street specialist for the defence believed Harry to be far from sane, and a medical examination was ordered. This was duly concluded, and the prison doctors found nothing wrong with him. The jury took little time in convicting Harry, and he was promptly executed at Pentonville Prison on the 9th of October, 1934. Well, my dear friends, I do hope you enjoyed those 2 crime cases. I'm pretty sure that you haven't heard of them before. Maybe very few crime buffs out there might have heard of the first one. I doubt it, but the second one, probably not at all. So I hope that was something new for you instead of the usual fodder that is spread about on YouTube. So, very sad. Poor Elsie. There was no way that she would have expected that she was going to be the victim of murder, working in a little junk shop in the West End, which was then and now the better part of London. You know, you just never know when the Grim Reaper is going to come calling. Why something like that would happen, she must have been clueless, just as I am. Do I believe in the racial slur allegations? Not sure, wasn't there. But even if she did say those things, is no way deserving of what happened to her, as the judge quite rightly said. Don't know what happened with that young man, why he suddenly, on that day, I know he'd been involved in petty crime, but there is no mention of violence in his records, mostly theft. Why did he decide to explode on that day? I guess we'll never know. Absolutely tragic. Many people have poor and disadvantaged backgrounds but don't do anything like that, so it's no excuse. I can only imagine that he was frustrated with his life, coming from an immigrant background and being poor, and you look at London, certain parts of it, people have no conception of how it was in the really poor parts. Terrible, as you can see by those photos. And I can remember as a child in the north of England seeing the tail end of that in certain areas, places that looked like bomb sites. Absolutely terrible. You wouldn't imagine that in a civilized world, and that was the 20th century, late 20th century, that it could be like that in Great Britain, but it was. And he obviously had a tough time dealing with that and had developed an obsessive personality, as we can see from his compulsive desire to have these swords or daggers. Yeah, very, very tragic. And what a shock for the poor husband of Elsie. No way that anyone would expect that. And the final case, that guy, how would she know? That poor girl, she just wanted to have a good time. She thought, oh, well, this guy's good looking. I can have a good time with him and no ties. Little did she know that he had different thoughts on that, and that he had suffered some bad experiences during the war and come from a background of mental instability. Not good ingredients, as she was to find out. Very, very sad. From the first time they saw each other, their lives were already over, and they didn't know it. Very sad. Anyway, onto a lighter note, I've found a couple of websites while doing this research. As you know, I always stumble upon these sites. Has nothing to do with these cases, really. Well, it does indeed. One of them is about junk stores, antique shops. The other one not, but I thought I would include it anyway. There's not too much I can say on this case. I can say actually a few words. There was very few images for the first case, as you've probably already deducted. So I had to use some scenes from London in that era to pad it out a bit. Just very few images. And the second story, there were no images associated directly with that case. And so I decided for the first time to use, in a few of the slides, images created by AI. For those of the older generation who don't know what AI is, and I'm sure many of you do, it's artificial intelligence. Often the results are disastrous. You give in a sort of message prompt and it sort of comes up with this simulated image which it has manufactured from using different images which are found on the internet. As I say, often the results are disastrous. Have a look at this image here. Some of this AI software has a problem with human limbs, fingers, and where they should be. It makes us look quite monstrous. Getting much better, of course. Some of the ones that you pay for that are quite expensive are doing a much better job, and it's improving constantly. It did help me in this presentation that I could have a few interesting images. Of course, I had to work on them myself. I had to retouch. Sometimes it will have an eyelid sort of not in the right place or just weird looking, so I did retouch it a bit. Let me know what you think of the AI images. I think it's quite good, actually. Myself, I do have, some concerns about artificial intelligence, but I think if it's used correctly, it will be of great benefit to mankind in many areas. Then again, the government and criminals are going to get hold of it, so my high hopes have been dashed. That's that. We're definitely doomed. Anyway, that's another topic altogether. Let's have a look what I found on the internet. This is an article called Bring Back the Great British Junk Shop. It's by the Financial Times. Very interesting. It shows you the sort of landscape now that we've arrived at, where junk stores are really a beautiful thing of the past, and probably in the future we're going to see very few of them. I'll read a few lines from this. I won't read the whole article. Distinct from antique shops which were more carefully curated and sold unattainable delicate things such as Georgian furniture and Rococo silver, junk shops were stuffed with crap, most of it unsaleable, but some of it absolute magic. Their interiors were spaces of extraordinary spectacle, dense three-dimensional landscapes in which every surface was stuffed with objects. Even the ceilings became panoramas of hanging artifacts. From lamps to old drapes, iron chains, and pewter tankards. Did you notice he said crap? That's part of my vocabulary. Also, Some of my American cousins, when I say junk stores, they go, well, that's not junk stores, they're antique shops. These are actually junk stores that I visit. If you saw the antique shops in Zurich, you'll know what I mean. There's a huge difference. So this guy is talking about the real junk store that I always loved. Their unpredictability and eclecticism, the chance of picking up something for a song was exciting, but it has become almost entirely a thing of the past. Hardly any true junk shops remain, and it has made our interiors duller in 1,000 ways. I absolutely loved them. You might pick up a modernist chair or an old painting, a first pressing of a rare record or a snow globe. Through every stage of my capricious collecting career, the junk shops would be there to support me with the promise of something rare and unusual. I feel very much the same as this chap. Look at that, Robert's Rummage. Ah, love it. Love it. Was that 6 shillings and 8 pence? Isn't that fantastic? Most of the time, it is true, you found nothing, but this was an era when house clearances might yield incredible quantities of things. Very true. Relative poverty and the decline of the middle classes meant that, by and large, old furniture, art and objects were kept while they could still be used. Then, at some point in the 1980s, something strange happened. Old tired furniture was dumped and new furniture from Habitat and then, a little later, IKEA, began to appear in interiors until, eventually, that was effectively all there was. And the thing is also the internet has changed this as well, because the junk shop owners, they have a research. Any item they get, they can pretty much know what it's worth using Google Images and scanning that item, which takes the fun out of it, because that was the whole fun of junking. You might find an antique treasure before the days of the internet, which that is largely over now. I'm going to leave this link up. In case I forget to put it, please remind me. For those of you who want to read it in full, it's very interesting. But it is sad. It is sad that this era is nearly over. I'm happy to say that I have enjoyed these junk shops over the decades and still continue to enjoy them. Sadly, there are less and less each year, and when one closes, there is not another one popping up to replace it. But those of a certain age who enjoy antiques and junk, you will know what I mean. We've had our time, and it was fun. On to the next article. This site is called rarehistoricalphotos.com, and it's about vintage vending machines, which I do love, and I had no idea that back in the day they had such amazing and bizarre vending machines. Wait till you check some of these out. We'll have a quick look through them. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but let's just have a look at some of the machines. So you could buy insurance from these vending machines. That would be great. There's nothing worse than dealing with insurance agents. We avoid them as much as possible. We have their number already in the memory, so if we see them, we don't answer. Trying to harass us to pay more. So here we go. Look at this. Pick a pocket book. I love it. Pick a pocket or two. Isn't that wonderful? I do remember when I was a child, I would go and visit my sisters, and at Victoria Station in London, they had one of these vending machines. It was a bit more modern than this, but it also sold Pulp Fiction paperback books, which I bought for the bus journey. I would read them. So that's something they should bring back. But how many people are reading now? Let me know if you can think any novel ideas for vending machines nowadays that might take off. I would love to know your thoughts on that. So let's have a look here. Fresh Ark pie. Is that ice cream? I'm not really sure. My American friends will tell me for sure. I've never heard of that before. Ark pie, and there's a picture of a bunny rabbit on it. I'm not sure. It looks like you know what it looks like? It looks like one of the Coca-Cola machines, which has been sort of reinvented, because that's very similar shape to the one I had, a 1950s Coca-Cola machine, where the can would come out. I think it is, and they've just used it for another purpose. Now, I love this. Check this out. This is obviously 1930s. Have you seen this? No, I haven't. Lighted cigarettes. The Wonder Automatic lighted cigarettes. 1 penny. Here, it's obviously English. For a lighted black cat. Yes, black cat. I remember those boxes. My father
had collected a few from me from the war years. Look at that. So you put your money in and a lighted cigarette comes out. I'm not sort of promoting smoking, by the way, but I think that is brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Ha! And you could also have Cold Flake lighted cigarettes. Isn't that amazing? What is this? Oh, perfume. Look, press plunger firmly all the way and it sprays you with perfume for 10 cents. Isn't that fantastic? I reckon that would still be viable in the ladies' restrooms in restaurants or pubs. I still think that would make money. Yeah, that is a great idea. Airline trip insurance. Okay, yeah, that's not a bad idea. But everything's online now, of course. The perfume one's a good idea. That would still work. This is in Dutch. Oh, gramophone. You can buy singles from this machine. Isn't that a great idea? I've never seen one of those before. Wow. Meat, bread and bakery. Yeah, now, this is not a new idea. It's been around for a long time. They've even had them here in Switzerland. I did spot an old machine one day which was totally, been derelict for many years, but it also was selling stuff like this. But it's still great. You could buy meats and bread and bakery. Bakery, yeah, bread. Bakery? What is that, like cakes and stuff? And that's bread? Okay. Worms for fishing. All right. That I've never seen before. Don't know what this is. This looks a bit South American, doesn't it? But board jar. Wonder what that is. Somebody tell me, please. Reader's Digest. Articles of lasting interest. So it's Reader's Digest magazines. Okay. I never knew about all these machines. I wonder where they all are. What is this? Self-service bars. Bars. Nylons. Ah, stockings. Okay. Women's stockings. Absolutely brilliant. Ever open shop. What are these? Does anyone know? I can't really decipher what that would be. Don't know what that's selling. I guess it's just like one of the vending machines today selling chocolates and stuff, I'm guessing. 2 nickels, tomato and lettuce. Oh, sandwiches. Cream cheese and jelly. Cream cheese and jelly. Okay. Oh yeah, sandwiches, packed sandwiches. A Macy's vending machine that sold men's shorts for only 97 cents. Wow. Okay, so if you're on the run and you find yourself minus your trousers suddenly, you could buy a pair from this vending machine. Brilliant. Warm buffet. Now, they did have these in America, didn't they? 20s and 30s and 40s and 50s. I do believe there's one still existing in New York. I'm not sure whether that closed. A few years ago, I talked about this in one of my videos, but that's sort of indoors. You could choose what you liked and put your money in and get out, an apple pie or sandwiches or hot meal. Great idea. Milk machines, they still have them on the farms here. Not as ornate as that, but you can still put your money in and get fresh milk from the farm. Something Eckert's vending service. What have we got? Novamat. Delivery handle. What is it? Oh, is it probably coal? It's coal. Look at that. Wow. I've never seen anything like that before. An automatic coal vending machine. Isn't that amazing? Oh yeah, coal machine. It's got written underneath. Oh, it's Sunday. Excuse me. Didn't sleep that well last night. Hey, here you can buy tins of fruit. Chocolate and sweetmeats. Oh, apples and stuff. Well, I guess apples were quite exotic during the war years and earlier times. Self-service, sanitary, magic fountain. Let's have a read the bottom. What is it? Soda machine and required no soda squirter. Okay. Not really what you'd need when you're out and about, is it? You're going to make a martini or something in the middle of the street? A man uses a cafeteria vending machine called Automat. Oh, it's the same thing that... the Automats. That's what they were called, as I was talking about earlier, the Automats. Quick cafe hot coffee, yes. I do remember at my school they had this 1960s coffee machine. And this was really old then. There'll be queues. I was part of the queue for this horrible watery tea and watery hot chocolate. Absolutely vile it was. Oh my God, very unpleasant memories of that machine. Just stood there like a monolith, silently waiting to poison us. So what have we got here? Delicious refrigerated sandwiches. Ah, That's very common. Ice cold drinks, yes, that's what we see nowadays. We have exactly the same. And soup machines, not bad. Campbell's soups. Ha! Postage stamps, yep, that's not uncommon. More stockings. Ice cream, yep, we've seen that. Chilled fruit, yep. Well, I think they're sort of repeating now. Farm eggs. I've never really seen a machine that sells eggs. Okay. Potatoes. A potato vending machine. Well, I think they've had a vending machine for just about everything, haven't they? And you could buy, I can remember machines like this as a kid. These old machines were sort of dying out, but you could buy watches in them. I do remember that. Watches and clocks here im Hof. So here, they have them here at the shop. Das ist die erste Uhrenautomat Berlin. This is the very first watch automat or vending machine in Berlin. Wow. It's actually got clocks in it. They're not watches. Clocks. Very funny. Whiskey. A whiskey. Oh, wow. I don't think they would allow that nowadays. That would be encouraging alcoholism. A woman buying a whiskey from the vending machine. Brilliant. Beer. Oh, I'm thinking about buying one of those, if I can get one restored. Isn't that a fantastic idea? Huh? When you're so lazy that you can't pour yourself a beer from the fridge. Oh, my goodness. Then again, for outdoors, I guess it's dangerous. I think there'll be drunks everywhere. Of course, nowadays they wouldn't allow that because publicans have to be responsible and not allow people to get drunk in pubs. You're allowed to have a few drinks, but you're not allowed to get drunk anymore. So I guess if you are a drinker who can hold their drink and not look drunk, you'll get away with it. But if you start behaving naughty and annoying other people, then the publican has a duty to throw you out onto the street. Well, with decorum, of course. So pick up household essentials. Look at that. You buy soup and toothpaste and pretty much everything. Hot drinks, we know that. It's pretty much similar to the machine at my school. It looked about that era, had a very similar image to it. Huh. Well, that's it. I hope you enjoyed that. I did. Well, I'm going to go now, my friends. By the way, did you like that vintage intermission? That guy's voice was so smooth, just like the ice cream. They matched his voice perfectly to their product. Anyway, my dears, let me know what you think about these cases and the websites that I just visited. I'm going now. Until next time, take care, God bless, and bye-bye.